And now we turn to Charles Marino. He is former Homeland Security advisor. Charles, good to see you. With all deference to the general that we heard talking over in Europe about how the vetting begins as soon as they get off the plane in Europe, we last week got a letter from a United airline pilot, and that pilot had flown a lot of Afghan refugees, about 355 of them on the passenger manifest, from Kuwait to Dulles Airport. Now, he told us a very different story from what the general was telling us. He said that these people had not been vetted in Europe or in Kuwait before they came to the United States. They flew directly to Dulles, and he went further than that and said, as far as vetting goes, we could not get off the plane in Dulles for over 6 hours. The Border Patrol told us that they were vetting them while held on the plane. The U.S. crew was not allowed off either. We started the flight thinking we were doing good, but by the time we deplaned, we could have been bringing back some really bad guys. What do you think of the comments of this pilot juxtaposed with what we heard from the general?
Yeah, David, let's remember this was born out of a strategy that was filled with poor decisions, flawed assumptions, and it led to what we all saw. Chaos and sloppiness. Nothing good comes out of the chaos and sloppiness when you're dealing with national security. And the vetting is just one example of that. Not only did we not achieve our mission of getting all Americans and pre-vetted SIVs out of Afghanistan, but who actually got on those planes to come to the United States? They were refugees. And one important point I'll make is that your vetting is only as good as the systems you're vetting against. That means if these refugees have not come in contact with U.S. forces over the 20 years, there will be no record of them. Yeah. They are ghosts. They don't exist.
You know, the other thing that this pilot said is that very few of them, he said only a handful out of 355 spoke English. If they're translators, you would assume they speak English. They were helping our service people over there. So, I mean, there are all kinds of inconsistencies here in this report. And then there's also the question of the people who did work with us, who spoke English and who we know them, we at Fox News know them, who were not able to get in. One of them was a translator who actually got into the airport but was kicked out. And we heard from him on the day of the explosion last week. Let me just play that soundbite and get your reaction. Roll tape.
We have 6 plans. We're going to get you out.
But I know that I'm going to be left behind. I know that for sure. I know that I'm going to get killed. But the good thing is that I'm not going to die for a bad thing. I'm going to die for a good thing. What I did, I will never regret it because I have tried to help people. It's me.
So, Charles, it looks like a lot of good people that should have been on those planes weren't.
Yeah, it's sad. There are a lot of good people here that work very closely with our forces and other U.S. agencies over the past 20 years. And this administration broke their promise to the Americans that got left behind, as well as to these SIV Afghans who helped us defeat al-Qaeda and the other terrorist organizations while we were there. Listen, we know what this should have looked like in an ideal situation. The forces should have remained. The SIVs and Americans should have been taken out of the general population in Afghanistan, put in a place like Bagram, and exited Afghanistan in an orderly fashion. This strategy has failed at every single level, and it's going to directly impact negatively our national security here in the United States, and that is pathetic, and the administration should be embarrassed.
Well, you know, we're only a couple of days away from the 20th memorial of the 9/11 attacks, which, of course, emanated from Taliban-controlled Afghanistan back then. I mean, are we setting ourselves up for importing people who could be planning another attack like that?
Absolutely, we are. And, you know, the other day, the president, during his press conference, proclaimed that he is a student of history. So here's what I recommend as we approach the 20th anniversary of September 11th, that the president and his national security staff go back and read the 9/11 Commission report so we don't repeat history here.
Well, there is another problem, which is that even if they're not coming off the planes directly from Afghanistan or from a secondary location like Kuwait, there is the southern border, which still has not been taken care of, has not been secured. It's as open as it's ever been right now, and there are questions about whether there would be a whole lot of people coming from the Mideast now because of what happened in Afghanistan and coming through the southern border.
That's a fair question to ask, and I've been on with you talking about it for the past 8 months, how concerning the southwest border is. Listen, the cartels are going to traffic anybody that pays the right amount across the southwest border, and that includes terrorists. We know that 30% of the over 1 million people are coming from countries across the southwest border that don't originate outside of Central America and Mexico. So we know that it's a diverse population across the globe coming across the southwest border. And how, for the life of me, this president has not closed that border is very hard to understand and is not improving our national security and protecting the American citizens.
So many things that are hard to understand, like why we pulled the troops out before we got the Americans out. And we don't want to leave with you without talking about the Americans. What about the number? I mean, you go from thousands. They say they got 4,436 Americans out. God bless them for that. But do you really believe that all but 100 remain in Afghanistan, or do you think they're fiddling with the numbers just to put the best face on it?
I think they've been fiddling with the numbers from the start. That's been apparent, whether you go from the press conferences at the Pentagon, then shift over to the press conference at the White House, to the State Department. There's no synergy in terms of the numbers that they've given on any one day. So the quick answer is I doubt that they really have a firm grasp on how many Americans are actually left behind in Afghanistan.
Charles Marino, scary stuff. I don't like to use that word very often, but when you have a country as unprepared, or an administration as unprepared as we seem to be for terrorist strikes, this is not the right medicine, that's for sure. Charles, good to see you. Thank you very much.